From July 21st to 23rd, Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping led a delegation to inspect Tibet. And just a day before Xi's arrival, Henan suffered severe flooding, with the official website of Henan Water Resources Department releasing information that it is once in more than 5,000 years. On the 20th, a huge flood occurred in Zhengzhou City. The Metro Line 5 and Jingguang Expressway tunnel were flooded and many people died. In the case of serious flooding in Henan, why didn't Xi Jinping go to Henan to inspect and guide the relief work, and instead went to Tibet? Xi Jinping has also repeatedly emphasized to always put the people's life safety and physical health first. A netizen commented that Xi Jinping has a Ph.D. Of course he knows to run to higher ground when there's a big flood, and it's obvious that Tibet is higher than Henan. Combined media reports and China expert analysis believes that Xi Jinping visited Tibet for 3 reasons. The first is the tension on the border between China and India. The second is to investigate the Motuo hydropower project that has a total installed capacity of about 3 times the Three Gorges Dam. And the third is to avoid responsibility. As seen in the photos released by the official media, those accompanying Xi Jinping to Tibet included Vice Chairman of the CCP's Military Commission Zhang Youxia and Vice Premier Liu He. Chinese official media reported that Xi Jinping stressed the need to grasp the 4 major factors of stability, development, ecology, and strong border defense. He raised the need to coordinate and plan the construction of the Western Border Railroad network. The report also mentions Xi Jinping's important statement made at the Symposium on Tibetan Work last August. He stated that ruling the country must start from ruling the border, and to rule the border, one must first stabilize Tibet. Xinhua News reported on July 23rd that on the morning of July 21st, Xi Jinping arrived at Ningqi Mainling Airport. He then took a car to the Niang River Bridge to learn about the Yarlung Tsangpo River and the ecological protection of the Niang River Basin. In the afternoon of July 21st, Xi inspected the livelihood construction in Ningqi City. In the morning of the 22nd, he went to the Ningqi Railway Station to learn about the Sichuan-Tibet Railway Plan and the construction and operation of the Lhasa-Ningqi section. He then took a train to Lhasa City to inspect the construction along the La-Lin Railway. In the afternoon, Xi went to Drepung Monastery in the western suburbs of Lhasa. And on July 23rd, Xi was briefed by government officials in Lhasa and received representatives of troops stationed in Tibet. Current events commentator Jiang Feng said, "The Tibet issue has always been a sensitive issue for China." The official media of the CCP did not mention the specific contents of his speech. The CCP's policy towards Tibet has actually changed quietly in the past decade. During the Deng Xiaoping era, there are 2 main aspects. The first was to use the mainland economic development to drive and bring Tibet closer. The second was to adhere to the Mao era's characterization of the Dalai Lama's so-called escape and secession. During the Hu Jintao era, the tone remained the same. In the Xi Jinping era, it became more about the governance of the border. The economic accumulation that was carried out during the Deng Xiaoping era has started to expand externally during the Xi era, which is a fundamental change. As the Dalai Lama gets older, the issue of reincarnation and succession has surpassed ordinary religious customs, and has evolved into a political crisis of whether India or China has more control over the entire Tibetan region. The second issue is that, in the midst of the US-China conflict, India has taken away a significant share of China's production, and China's status as a world factory is starting to wane. The competition between China and India has begun. If the CCP wants to achieve their plans to overtake the US, it has to find a way to conquer India as their major competitor. Jiang Feng also said, along with the intensification of a full-scale conflict between China and the US, India has fully linked arms with the US and actively participates in Asia-Pacific affairs. The possibility of a full-scale military conflict between China and India and escalation into an invasion-style war has increased. The CCP's space for survival in this international arena is becoming increasingly constricted. The conflict with India can find a way to reduce the domestic political pressure. A conflict over Taiwan and the South China Sea could rapidly internationalize, with the US and other countries intervening, and the war would escalate, possibly even leading to the collapse of the CCP regime. By convention, a CCP leader's first stop in Tibet is always Lhasa, because it symbolizes the absolute control of centralized power. But Xi Jinping's first stop was Ningqi. Ningqi is located in southern Tibet, which is a disputed area between China and India, with Bhutan to the west and Burma to the east, and India effectively controlling almost the entire southern region of Tibet. The fact that Xi Jinping did not go to Lhasa and went straight to Ningqi actually has a very strong implication on the declaration of border ownership. It is worth noting that Xi's visit to Tibet on July 21st coincided with the deterioration of Sino-Indian relations. Last year, the worst clash in decades erupted between Chinese Communist forces and Indian troops in the Himalayas, resulting in casualties on both sides. On July 3rd, the Wall Street Journal reported that China and India have sent tens of thousands of troops and deployed advanced military equipment to the disputed border. The deployment of troops in the region for both countries reached the highest level in decades. According to Indian intelligence and military officials, the People's Liberation Army has gradually increased its presence in the border region, with the current garrison of at least 50,000 troops, up from about 15,000 this time last year. India has reciprocated by deploying tens of thousands of troops and advanced artillery to the area. Jiang Feng analyzed that if a war breaks out between China and India, it will be a controlled war. Because of the special geographical conditions of the Qinghai-Tibet Plateau, it is impossible for the two countries to penetrate into the depths of each other's territory. So the damages will not be heavy, especially for the CCP. Compared to the South China Sea and Taiwan, a war with India has the lowest political cost. The South China Sea conflict will be rapidly internationalized, and the entire association of Southeast Asian nations will turn against each other. And the Taiwan military conflict will be quickly brought to the international table. As long as the US takes action, the war will escalate. Choosing to fight with India helps find a way to lower the pressure of domestic political conflicts and establish dictators' control over military power and supreme authority through local wars. One of Xi's major itineraries was to take a train to Lhasa to check the plan of the Sichuan-Tibet Railway and the construction and operation of the Lhasa-Ningqi section. The Sichuan-Tibet Railway officially began construction in 2014 and has unparalleled military attributes. It passes through the Hengduan Mountains and the plateau and high valleys of southeastern Tibet, making it one of the riskiest and most challenging railroad projects in human history, both in terms of construction and operation. But the CCP has scheduled the full opening of the railway in 2022. As part of their 100th anniversary gift to the CCP, it is now estimated that the full opening of the railway will be realized by the end of this year. In 1962, China won the Sino-Indian conflict but gave South Tibet back. Why didn't they keep it? Because they can't hold on to it. If one comes from India, they have to go through the Great Plains and up to the middle of the mountain, while the Chinese side needs to climb from the highlands up and over the top of the mountains. With less than 3 months of transportation time per year, if the Chinese army was stationed in southern Tibet, the material transportation would not be efficient. The army simply can't stay there for a long period of time, so China returned the land they conquered. If the Sichuan-Tibet Railway is launched, the trains can guarantee a smooth transportation all year round, except for extreme weather. The most important thing is that the railway departs from the Sichuan hinterland. Sichuan and Yunnan's population total to more than 100 million. Moreover, Chengdu City in Sichuan is the most important military technology production base in China. Chengdu's military region has always been large. Even when the military command center is now centered in the west, Chengdu still has very high military logistical support and command capabilities. The second purpose of Xi Jinping's visit to Tibet is to inspect the Motuo hydropower project. According to a CCTV report on the 25th, Xi's first stop on his trip to Tibet was the Niyang River, one of the major tributaries of the Yarlong-Tsangpo River. The planned hydropower plant in China is located near the entrance of the Niyang River, at the Big Bend Canyon section of Yarlong-Tsangpo River, which has a drop of 2,350 meters. The plant has an installed capacity of 60 gigawatt, about 2.5 to 3 times that of the Three Gorges hydropower plant. The plant is currently in the survey stage. In 2019, it was reported that the Motuo hydropower plant will be built in 2030 to 2035 and completed by 2045. Experts believe that this could be the riskiest mega project in history, not only because it is prone to massive landslides and the area has had some of the largest earthquakes ever recorded, but also because it is very close to the disputed border between China and India. Water Conservancy expert Wang Weiluo said in an interview with Radio Free Asia that the Motuo hydropower project has been written into the 14th five-year plan, meaning that it will go ahead regardless of whether the Tibetans and Indians agree or not. The investment in the project may be 5 times that of the Three Gorges project. In addition, the Great Western Water Transfer Plan, which is the water transfer from Tibet to Xinjiang, has also been included in the 14th five-year plan, with a project scale of about $309 billion. The Yarlung Tsangpo River originates from the glaciers at the foot of the northern Himalayas, with an average flow of 16,240 cubic meters per second, and runs west to east through southern Tibet, cutting through the Himalayas north of Motuo, turning south to form the Yarlung Tsangpo Canyon, flowing through Malian, then south through the disputed southern Tibetan region of China and India, before entering the Indian state of Assam, and then flowing into Bangladesh. The Yarlung Tsangpo Canyon is the deepest and one of the world's largest canyons. Wang Weiluo said China and India still have a dispute over the actual control of the territory of the Motuo Dam site. If the dam is built in Bayi town, it will flood Ningqi and Bayi. If the river water is diverted from the local area to Xinjiang and other parts of China, that plan will be quite insane, and the downstream countries would definitely oppose it. And if it has to be built, war is just inevitable, as the water is their life source. The last reason in Xi Jinping's decision to not go to Henan is to avoid his responsibilities. China expert and current affairs commentator Wen Zhao said the heavy rain in Henan came down in the afternoon of July 20th and sparked heated discussion on the internet in the evening. Xi arrived in Tibet on the 21st, so he certainly had plenty of time to change his schedule. But once he goes to Zhengzhou, the provincial secretary of Henan and the municipal secretary of Zhengzhou will accompany him to inspect and report on the work in person. In regard to how many people died, the local officials will have to face the general secretary and ask him for instructions. As long as he went, he would have to give instructions and put in work. He had to take responsibility for the stability maintenance, manage disaster relief, how to pose for photos for the media, how to report, and take responsibility for all kinds of things. It's also possible that there will be the family members of those missing that come to block his way and plead to help them find their lost family. So to avoid this, he went to Tibet and gave empty instructions on doing a good job in disaster prevention and relief, and asking for putting the people's lives and property safety first. When Xi Jinping went to investigate, he shifted the responsibility to officials below him. The Beidaihe meeting usually takes place from late July to mid-August, and involves personnel arrangements to be discussed at the 6th plenary session of the Central Committee. Xi Jinping wants to prepare for his re-election next year, so he doesn't want any trouble during this period to avoid his political opponents from having leverage over him. Some analysts said Luo Yangsheng, Provincial Committee Secretary of Henan, and Xu Liyi, Municipal Committee Secretary of Zhengzhou, are members of Xi Jinping's Zhejiang New Army in Zhejiang. So Xi Jinping's decision of not going to Henan actually saves them from trouble as well. Wen Zhao said that the main reason Xi Jinping didn't go to Henan is to avoid trouble. The CCP is such a system where from the top to bottom, no one wants to take responsibility, and everyone wants to put the blame on someone else to save themselves. So the Zhengzhou flood is no exception.